Alright, estamos aquí. We are here. This is gonna be the last class of power dynamics. It's not the last class, it's just, oh, come on. By the way, in the last video, I forgot to put the capybara. And I was like, no, I forgot, no, let's record everything again. Come on. So this is gonna be the last class of power dynamics, but it's not the last class actually. It's the last class in the first segment, then there's gonna be a pause to introduce new concepts, and then we're gonna finish power dynamics when I've introduced more concepts and it's easier to understand all that stuff. As you can see, I'm not speaking very loudly because, well, I don't want to bother my flatmates. I bought the wet towels. It's another day. Yeah, it's not the same day as the other day. Maybe this is too wet of a towel for this. Maybe I will need not wet towels. So what we're going to be discussing, right? We're going to be discussing politics in this class, which is the fight for power. As I explained in the last class, if you remember, it's not the same power dynamics than, well, at least I don't mean the same when I say power dynamics and when I say politics. And we saw that politics is the thing that happens when there is opposing interests, opposing forces. As you can see, I'm addicted to coffee and I'm tired. I'm constantly tired because I do a lot of stuff, and you know, it's difficult, right? Trying to achieve world peace, you need to learn a lot and teach a lot. And if you want to do it quick and you're young and ambitious, well, you need some drug addiction, right? And I picked the least damaging one, coffee. Anyway, we're going to be talking about politics, as remember from the other class. Politics is the fight for power, and there's only a fight for power when power wants to go in opposing directions. Alright. And we saw that power is muscle and information processing capabilities or management capabilities, whatever word you want to use. And we saw that humans, another principle is that humans are basing all their actions on survival, being statistically granted, and then their later happiness, all understood as what we saw in the first class, blah, 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 blah. Okay, so we need to just have the base in our head to understand how politics, the fight for power, happens. So let's try to think of another principle, more than a principle, a mechanic that happens to humans, which is when you have a problem, right? When you have a problem, you have two ways of solving it, usually, right? As we have seen along the way, the general case, when you have a problem with two people, we saw that you can talk or you can fight. There's always this dual nature of solving problems, which is the one with a more rational usage of our brain, and the one with our another more like instinctual way, like the fight. So we see that humans have like two pretty distinct, even though they are only part of a spectrum. To be honest, everything is a spectrum in life, okay? All the labels that we try to use to segment these spectrums is just a guide so we can process reality. As we saw, the fixed variable resolution technique is here again. So in this spectrum of solving problems, we can see we can use something more instinctive or something more rational. And we said that rationality, and instincts. So what is the difference, right, between this? Well, let's go out to our definition of fixed variables. Instincts fix a lot of variables at the same time. So this is like greater, I'm going to use math notation, greater than, greater amount of variables fixed, BF. And rationality is when you fix less amounts of variables. There's not like this definition is not like an absolute thing. It's like relatively. If you are in some problem fixing less variables than someone else fixing that problem, you're being more rational. If you are fixing more variables, you're being more instinctive. What does it mean to fix more variables, right? Well, you should know by now. And if this is the first video you're watching about the whole class thing, just go watch all the videos, because I'm building on previous definitions and on previous concepts. So fixing more variables is getting more definitions or more concepts, assuming more truths, okay? But we know that truth, we also know that truth, the only synonym of truth is depends, because, well, everything depends on the context. So when you assume a truth, you should use it as a guide, not always as a truth. A final truth does not really exist. And that's how we process reality as human beings. So remember always in your life to use truth and beliefs and everything as a guide, not as a final thing. So you assign more truths, you create more beliefs, more definitions, more whatever. Then you're being more instinctual, and when you're being more rational, that's like the difference. And well, another thing that we all are very familiar with are emotions. Okay, emotions and instincts. Why do they exist, right? And usually instincts are hardwired in our biology. Okay, they are like, we cannot really control them. Hardwired. They are almost like a chemical reaction, like an explosion that cannot be controlled once it's ignited. You put fire into the bomb, and the bomb does boom. Okay, that's kind of what instincts are, or how they behave. This is very tasty. Cafe Latte Kaiku sponsors this video. No, it doesn't. It doesn't. Good. Hardwired emotions. So that's kind of how instincts behave, and it's uncontrollable because you're not using rationality to process reality. You're just reacting to reality the same way physical forces interact with each other. So we have these two different ways of solving a problem, but how or what determines which one of them we are going to use? That's a very interesting question that I will answer now, but let's explore this part. Emotions and are a type of instinct, which, as we see, they are like almost automatic reactions that we get when we have a problem that we want to solve. And when do we trigger emotions? When do we trigger instincts? I think these ones are the dry ones. Well, I can draw it here. I don't need to draw anything. Forget that to erase anything. I mean, when do we do it? Well, let's use a very intuitive experience that everybody shares, so we can create a definition that makes sense. Which is, imagine you are in the wild, okay? And what happens when you are in the wild? And again, I'm gonna use a lion because it's very, very well known. You have it's actually more of a, I'm going to eat you, lion. And with a big tail, kind of, okay? And you're here. Okay, now you have a problem because you have a lion in front of you. What do? Start thinking like, oh, okay, this is a mammal. Oh, this is a mammal. I can see it's a mammal, so it could be a dangerous mammal. Yeah, it can be dangerous because I'm seeing teeth, and usually teeth is statistically correlated with sharp teeth with carnivores. And carnivores, which are of a similar size to me or bigger, might want to eat me. Okay, so I can conclude that this mammal, which looks dangerous, and has sharp teeth and is kind of the same size or bigger than me might want to eat me, and because he wants to, okay, you're dead by now. Okay, so the usefulness of instincts, or why they exist, or the ones we developed, it usually has an evolutionary explanation, which is that it helped when we lived in the savannah or in small tribes or very exposed to natural forces that we couldn't control. Okay, so with a lot of, well, casualties and successes, evolutionary principles, just the survival of the fittest, there were some instincts or things that got hardwired in our brain, reactions that got hardwired in our brain, which are transmitted through, wait, this is the Spanish way, DNA. DNA. ADN is the same, but in Spanish. DNA. So, why does it happen? Does it happen? Well, it just happens. It's the way it is. Biology marks it so. We don't have technology advanced enough so to say, okay, this is the DNA that makes us fear lions or fear big mammals with sharp teeth and are kind of the same size as us. This is precisely this, I don't know, TC, I don't know what are the DNA letters, I don't remember, A, U, I know U, I think it's for viruses or something, I don't know. The thing is that we don't know the DNA permutation that we have to do, so we stop fearing lions or stuff like this. We are not that advanced yet. So we have to assume that this is something we have to coexist with, because we cannot change it yet. And changing it is very complex, I guess, for now. So that's why instincts exist, because they have some use case, right? And come on, fuck it. The use case is, well, to survive and adapt, basically. This is too dry. I'll use the new ones. To survive and adapt. Oh, this is so smooth. Oh, wow. Wow. So relaxing to erase with this. So the thing is, that's why instincts exist. But, and that's why we have them. And emotions are just a kind of instinct. But instead of imminent danger, like lions, it's the ability to transmit our preferences to other tribe members quickly. And imagine you are in a tribe with your, and you know, it's just the way biology figure out to transmit information. Say, you should do this, you shouldn't do this because I don't like it, I like this, I don't like this, I like this, I prefer this, I prefer that, I like you more, I like you less. Like, it's just some kind of programming, biological programming. Oh, I didn't prepare this class much. Am I missing something again? And I'm a bit tired, you know. So let me rest a little bit. I'm tired. You know, I've been doing a lot of work these days. I want to rest. Fuck. Let's continue. But I like it. I like what I do. That's a good thing. Don't feel pity for me, please. Feel horny for me. No. Okay, let's continue. Less variables fixed, more variables fixed. So yeah, it's just a way of encoding complex reactions to complex environments, and that was useful back then when simple, from a societal point of view, societies existed. But now, as we saw, we're not fighting lions anymore. We've been fighting lions for thousands of years, but from the last hundreds, we didn't fight lions anymore. So this is when we realize that using emotions or instincts to solve modern society problems might not be the most optimal thing to do, right? This is the classic example that everybody knows by now, which is, oh, you have an exam and you feel anxious and nervous and in danger because it's like a threat, and your body is like having this hardwired reaction to the threat, and you are like thinking the exam is a lion and you feel threatened, and then blah 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 blah. And we should realize that okay, for small society sizes and for more exposed to nature, we cannot control societies. The use of emotions and instincts solving problems, it's good. But when we have a very complex society, let's say we have this you are this one, and 1 2 3 4 5 times 7 million. Okay, imagine you're angry at this guy and you kick him in the balls, and then this guy has a friend who gets angry at you, and then they kick you, and then they were like, you are angry, and then your friend gets angry at the friend because he kicked you, and then he kicks back, and then you can create easily cycles of chaos if you are moved by emotions are an instinct. Sorry. So the more you increase the complexity of the society, the less we should depend on this. Okay, mainly because of this reason. Because as we saw with if you are like, I don't know, a tribe of 10 people and you kick him, you kind of know who will look you bad, or because they are very dependent on you because it's a small amount of people, they will not kick you back, but they will scream at you, which is less energy expensive or less damaging to the overall health of the tribe. So tomorrow you can keep hunting more monkeys, whatever. So when you are in small sizes, these are quite nice, the kind of self-balance. Of course, there's always a risk with letting yourself be led by emotions. So, yeah. And you might be telling me, oh, but cheerfulism says that we should optimize for happiness and we should listen to happiness. Isn't happiness an emotion or something instinctical? Why should we do that? If you are telling, like if you're telling us that there is a risk with this, why should we do cheerfulism? That's a very good question if you ask it. And you should think about it. And I've thought about it, but I will explain it in another video. And so yeah, like in smaller sizes, I'm not finding the best of metaphors right now. Maybe it's because I'm tired. But in small size societies, it's kind of, you can just keep thinking about examples and you will figure out that in complex things, fixing, and also in like, you can see this, because this is the general principle, right? You can solve a problem via instincts, rationale, via fixing more variables at the same time or less variables at the same time. If you have a very complex engineer's problem, like let's say the particle physics collider, and you are like, okay, let's just assume that a lot of things, right? Let's assume that this will not melt. Let's assume that this is the voltage is going to be constant. Let's assume that the particles, or I don't know, are not going to explode in some weird way. So if you fix a lot of variables, creating more complex problems is just way difficult, right? Like, if you don't get deeper into the stuff, you cannot solve complex problems. That's also something that should feel more intuitive. Thus, a rational analysis allows us to go farther. But of course, rationality is only triggered when survival is statistically granted. Because if you have something that threatens your survival, you will turn this off. And bada bing, bada boom, this is the question I asked minutes and minutes ago of what makes us trigger this part or more this part. Well, what it will do is how threatened you feel by the problem. And that depends on, on your goals, survival and happiness, and how much the problem threatens your survival and how much the problem threatens your happiness. Now, the problem, we can quantify a problem theoretically about how much the more complex it is because there is more variables to fix and to understand and more concepts to understand. So the more complex, the more difficult for you to solve it, to feel in control of it, and the more it will tend to trigger your emotions, your emotional side, your instinctual your your instinctual side. Instinctual, is that a word? Instinct. Anyway, so the more variables, the more complexity, thus the easier, the more likely that it doesn't mean it's gonna happen, but it's the more likely that you end up using emotions. Now, solving a problem requires thinking, requires moving, and all these things are things that require time. Okay, so variables. This is given a snapshot on time, right? In one single unit of time, but a long time, solving a problem will require analyzing more information, then less, then more, then less, then more, until it's solved. So the amount of variables that requires through time, it's also an important thing to take into account when you are analyzing the complexity of a problem and whether it will eventually trigger your emotional response or not. So the more variables a problem has and the closer in time it is, the more likely you are to trigger your emotions. I think I need water. I think I'm dehydrating. That's why I feel so slow. Maybe I do a pause for water. So this is what matters when you trigger your emotions or not, and how is this related to politics, right? You might have even forgotten that this class was about politics. Because when you want people to use their power to solve the problem, to use their muscles and their information processing capabilities, these are two types on the spectrum of information processing capabilities. So they use their muscle, their vote in a democracy, or maybe riots on the street, literally muscle. If you want them to use their power to solve the problem, you need, you have to point to a problem that they feel is going to affect their survival or their happiness. And then people are going to be like, oh shit, this is going to be threatened. How much threatened? It will depend on how complex you perceive the problem is and how close in time you perceive the problem is. So imagine that there is a very complex problem, which is the sun is going to turn off in 7.5 billion years, and we don't know what to do about it. Like, if this was to happen tomorrow, what the fuck? We will be freaking out, like, no, no. But this is a very complex problem. Our sun is going to explode and we will have to abandon the planet. But it's so far in time that the amount of variables, that the complexity, let's say that this is a threshold for triggering emotions. When you have this much complexity, you trigger emotions. Maybe I should do a 3D plane because, okay, but let's just simplify it. And let's say that way. And then because of this super complex problem with a lot of variables, but then we have so much time of reaction, it distributes the variables evenly through the space, and we don't trigger our emotional response to this. Maybe some people one night when they are high on weed, they are like, oh shit, the planet's gonna explode, and then they get very nervous, very anxious, they trigger emotions, they start crying, whatever. So that's another example of, that's actually a pretty nice example on showcasing how you depend on the amount of variables, which is just another way of describing the complexity of the problem and the time where you have to solve the problem before it has negative consequences, let's say. It's like there. So the closer in time you perceive the negative consequences, the more likely you are to trigger emotions, and the more variables involved in fixing the problem, the more complex the problem is to fix. Also, the more likely you are in using emotions to fix the problem. And that's why people who seek power, I'm not saying politicians, I'm saying people who seek power, because you don't need to be a politician to seek power. You can just have a lot of money and try to influence the information processing of society via controlling social media, for example. I'm not saying this happens. So if you want people to move in the direction you want them to move, you have to present them a problem that threatens their survival or their happiness, and make them and it depends on what you want them to move by. If you want them to move by instincts and emotions, you present the problem as something very complex or something very urgent. Urgent, or I don't know how to pronounce it, close in time. And if you want them to use rationality, you should present them as something more manageable or which will have more time to react and all this stuff. And because we live in complex societies, we have complex problems, designing institutions, designing laws, managing companies to create complex products and stuff like this. Well, there's certainly some times where we want to do things in different opposing ways. It doesn't mean this one is good, it doesn't mean this one is evil, it just means that they are opposing directions or the opposing solutions to the same problem. Like, for example, we need doctors. Should we leave it to private capital organization or should we leave it to public? Oh, it starts with P, both of them, public. There's like opposing different ways of solving a problem in a more complex society. So that's what politicians try to use. And that's how politics just basically works. You just have to tell the people, hey, we have a problem and I have a solution. And try to convince them like, hey, I know that my solution is right. And if you want people to listen to you and to process your solution in one way or another, you present the problem in closer in time or with more complexity than it is actually, right? Because, like an example of exposing a problem in a very complex way when it's actually not that complex. Imagine you have an animal, okay? Imagine you have an animal. Let's put it in red. Imagine you have an animal. You have an animal in front of you. This animal has the characteristics of a mammal. Okay, so we know that mammals can reproduce with other mammals which are of the opposite sex of the animal we have in front of us, okay? We know that. And we also know that mammals need to eat to survive, okay? And we know that this mammal also have teeth. So if we can conclude that these are possible combinations of characteristics that might affect our problem, then we can conclude that this mammal might be a threat to us. And because of nature, so now we're gonna blah blah blah. And you know what the politician is actually describing, or the people who is seeking power? You have a lion in front of you. You have a lion in front of you. 8 words. And now I was saying the same, but with how many words I was using? So much. So you can also describe a problem with way much more definitions to make it look more complex than it actually is. So that's also a possibility. You don't only have to make it look close in time, but also you can make it look bigger than it actually is in order to trigger emotional response. Why would you want to trigger emotional response in people? To be honest, I don't know. It's just way more inefficient in complex societies. I think that's just a stupid technique. But nobody knows how to do better, so all the politicians do it, and it's like, guys, you're stupid. Sorry to tell you that you're stupid. I think you're objectively stupid. And a politician or someone who seeks for power might tell me, yeah, but people don't understand. So what am I supposed to do? Maybe the people are stupid. And then I will say, yeah, you both are stupid. It is what it is. Everyone is stupid to some extent. I'm also stupid to some extent. And again, like, this is not the truth. This is just my logical conclusions. If you think I'm wrong in something, just let me know, please. I like to correct and move things around. So that's how politics works, basically. You present people a problem that threatens survival or happiness, and people just move out of emotions or rational thinking. Because we don't have like food scarcity problems, we usually don't move by instincts, like the instinct to eat, the instinct to drink water. But if that was a problem, that would happen. So let's see if I'm missing anything about politics. This is like the basic thing. So yeah, and my thesis is that the over-abuse of emotions to solve complex societal problems leads to very inefficient outcomes, like genocides, wars, conflicts, and unnecessary economical conflicts, or armed conflicts, stuff like this. Simplifications of reality that don't really reflect reality and create bad outcomes, all this stuff, And that's why I think if you maximize intelligence, which is the amount of variables you can process in a certain amount of time, then you will be less likely, doesn't mean you will not use them, but you will be less likely to use emotions to guide yourself towards choosing a solution when we have opposing ways of solving something in a society. Instead of using your emotions, if you maximize your intelligence, you'll be more prone to using rationality instead of the classic emotional driven techniques that we have seen with all politicians all over the world. Doesn't matter the sign, the ideas, they all use this emotional driven thing, because people are just not intelligent enough to comprehend society and the things that you require, the concepts you require to govern and manage a complex big societies as of today. But that's why I think the base for solving the problems or making them more efficient or minimizing the abuse and minimizing the abuse is to maximize intelligence and optimize for happiness, because then people will be less prone to emotion-driven dialogue, debate, conflict, and they will use more rationality. So it doesn't mean people are gonna stop feeling emotions that you maximize your intelligence. It just means that you will use them for the things that were meant to be used, like talking to your friends, enjoying your life. But when you have to manage millions of dollars because of public funds and taxes, for example, which is a quite complex task, you will not be like choosing who does that based on fucking emotions, but on rationality, analyzing your society's context, you're like a system, breaking it down, understanding what are your preferences that make you happy and survive, and choosing the best, let's say, manager for the funds. So yeah, that's the way maximizing intelligence and optimizing for happiness can help us improve a society's power dynamics. And that's why we have to understand them. We have to understand economy. We have to understand everything, because then we have that, which is just maximizing our intelligence. We have to understand the engineer's way of thinking, which is the most efficient way of being intelligent. And we have to do that because we will reduce our dependence on emotions, which in complex systems we can see that they tend to chaos. Okay? And our societies are not anymore tribes. Okay, they're not tribes of hunters and gatherers. They're way more complex. So this is why I think cheerfulism will help with solving problems in more efficient ways, which at the end of the day, any political dispute is a problem. So think about any political problem that there exists in the world, it will be solved better. Any war that exists today, it would be solved better if the people were cheerful. The people who are in the war, who caused the war, who are fighting in the war, blah, blah, blah. If everyone suddenly becomes cheerful and with a maximized intelligence and an optimization compass for happiness, I think problems will be solved more efficiently and even avoided. There are some problems which once you create them, they are so chaotic that it doesn't matter the amount of intelligence you have. It's just pure chaos and the jungle, like wars. So the best thing is to prevent them instead of fixing them, which, I mean, we have to fix them. But for the future, it's better to prevent them. How? With an educational system that promotes maximization of intelligence and optimization of happiness, and understanding all this basic stuff about human nature that will help us take better decisions with our lives. And I will define and I will propose all this educational system in another set of classes. So there are a lot of tools that also appeal to emotion to move society, like nationalism feelings or concepts, or the idea of nationalism, because you don't have when you have a lot of people in a society and they are also distant in places like kilometers and kilometers and kilometers away, like let's say 100 kilometers, If you want them to cooperate together, you need them to feel like they belong to the same tribe. That's a human thing. If you feel someone is part of your group, then you're more likely to cooperate rather than to abuse. So what do you do? You create nationalism. You create what is called nationalism. Appeal to a shared culture, shared habits, shared religions, whatever thing, whatever pattern that people actually share. A same flag, same symbols, and you create this. But these shared definitions, as they are very very complex definitions, but very simply defined, and because human nature is dynamic, right? People die, people have new hobbies, people end up creating new traditions if you give them a long enough time. The nationalism is a source for fixing too much variables at the same time. So I don't think the current approach to creating nationalism feelings or the nationalism tool to organize societies is efficient, and I think we can promote a different type of nationalism, more based on not nationalism, more based on rationality, but without losing the emotional feelings, the fixed part of our brain processing capabilities that humans crave based on that. And how to do it? Well, and what that could look like, I'm not going to explain it here because it doesn't really matter, at least for now. So you can read the book, it's there. It's not going to be in the class, it's going to be in the book. If you are curious about it, just go to the book. So that's another thing I wanted to say. Yeah, that's the thing, right? I said that I have like cheerful people are robots because they don't use emotions. No, they are not robots. They just use emotions when you actually have to use emotions, not when anytime, like, yeah, let's try to organize a very complex society and let's try to put everything in one single unit of truth. Let's call it left wing or right wing, and yeah, for sure we're gonna make everything go fine, because reality is not complex and it can be simplified with just two teams. If you think this way, well, you're gonna get a very inefficient result. Not wrong, because that's subjective, but inefficient. Yeah, I said like every conflict, even the worst ones like genocides, that's very trendy nowadays. Unfortunately, it's a source of problems that have different opposing interests and forces trying to solve the problem, and they try to appeal to survival and happiness in one way or another. So if we get a cheerful society, I think I think I said it in the previous chapters, because it's gonna be more rational, more good. Not more good. That's subjective. I should change the way I word that. More rational. It's gonna be more efficient, and we're gonna solve problems in just better ways and less abusive ways. I'm gonna explain the relation between abuse and intelligence and stuff in the future class, because I think with economical concepts makes way much more intuitive sense. But yeah, I think one of the consequences will be that political actors, whether because of politics or economics, they are gonna try to seduce people into applying their solution to the problem via more rational instincts, via an actual like this, like a 1 hour YouTube video, long YouTube video, 1 hour long YouTube video, explaining with details and based on principles their proposal, and people, because they are cheerful, they're like, yeah, I'm gonna watch this 1 hour YouTube video instead of 5 seconds TikTok. Yeah, it takes more energy, it's more exhausting. But if we create, but it's humans are a being of habits. If we create the habit since we are kids to think, you eventually enjoy thinking. I've been thinking for a long time, and I prefer to do this than to watch TikTok. Like that's why I'm here. I'm not watching TikTok or whatever other more simple stuff. I do watch reels and short content, but not that often. I prefer something more complex, like going to the street and have a debate with a stranger or a friend, or read a book, or just think on myself. If you promote the habit, you create the master. So that's what we do. That's why education is so important, and why I'm very interested in that. So we can avoid future problems and solve current ones. Doesn't matter how big they are. Doesn't matter if it's a problem of, oh my god, the rubbish collection system in my city sucks and everything smells like shit in the mornings because the rubbish is not taken away. That's a problem, and that will be solved more efficient if everyone is cheerful. Oh, we hate each other and we created a war between two countries. That is a problem that can be solved more efficiently if society is educated in a cheerful way. Societies. And there are more nuances to this. Like, for example, what happens when survival is not statistically granted? Then we cannot use rationality, and if we cannot use rationality, we cannot really use intelligence. And there is extreme problems where, well, where we will not be able to do that if they happened. The key for this is preventing them, right? Once they happen, a problem so big that you cannot actually think, you just have to survive. Like if you are in the middle of a war, very complex. That's why we have to prevent them rather than well, waiting for them to happen and then trying to solve them. That would be the thing that we should not do. So what I was trying to say with this, I'm so tired. I shouldn't have recorded this today. I should have recorded it when I was more awake. But you know, all these things are better organized in the book, so you should go and read that. Less abuse, minimal abuse. I've mentioned about things about minimal abuse in previous classes. Yo, capybara. Oh, that turns off every 20 minutes, so there must be like 40 minutes video. Oh, 41. Oh, that's a good timer, actually. The new politicians, which appeal more to happiness rather than survival, via rational thinking, and people are going to be more rational because we're going to educate the children to be more rational. And the more people are rational, the more we realize the benefits of using rationality when it has to be used. And then more people will join to it, blah, 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 blah. Good. Challenges, right? That's everything that says here. And this is like the last conclusions and predictions. I've been saying some predictions, some conclusions. Are we doomed? I don't think we are. Also, we have new technology that improves the amount of information we can process. So that's also a positive point to solving problems. I'm not going to get into detail yet how each technology affects everything. But that's the thing. The maximization of intelligence and optimization of happiness can promote more empathy, blah, blah, blah. But this is something I will explain in another class, which is more intuitive in different contexts, oriented to, yeah, that's what I said right now. The power dynamics, the politics are going to be more oriented to arguing against positive happiness instead of acting by reaction. People are going to act more by conviction and rationality. So it's not going to be like, vote me because I'm the best and the other one is not the best, but the other one is the very bad and I am the lesser evil, so vote me. It's better the lesser evil than an evil. No, people are going to be more moved towards, hey, I'm a good, and this one is maybe a worse good, but still a good. You know, when people are moved to rationality, they are more oriented to more actual relatable or related to reality solutions of problems. So I think politicians will have way more intelligent discussions than the ones of today, using words with more accuracy than today and stuff like this. I'm also learning to use my words with more accuracy. As you can see, well, this is like a prototype class, so I will learn as I grow, maximize my intelligence while I optimize for my happiness. So yeah, I think we will solve problems more sustainably, and that creates more prosperity, blah, 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 blah. There is a challenge, okay? There is a very big challenge that we'll explain now that applies to our context. Abuse, okay, I'm going to talk about abuse in the next classes, about economics. Yeah, you know, it doesn't matter how intelligent you are and how much you optimize for happiness. If you're very strong, you can just abuse others. So, but that's related to what I just said of if the problem is too complex. That's kind of related. But that's just a theoretical risk. In reality, you know, people are not that strong. If someone tries to abuse too much, they get fucked. and now we have nuclear weapons. But this is more related to world peace, which is a thing that I will touch in other classes. I don't know why I have it here, or maybe it was for introducing the idea. Yeah, so I introduced the idea to your brain, and later we will analyze it deeper and properly. So the challenge is that the old people and the new generations, the ones who will have to solve the problems in the future, are not being properly trained in having a dynamic brain. As you might have seen, education is very based on memorization, because we come from the industrial era where you are actually being a good memorization, it was useful for productivity. Not anymore, because now we introduce the information era, and the information can be stored in other places rather than our brain, and slow to access books. So all the production, all the productivity, all the tools that we have and how we move to solve the problems is completely different. And we come from an era where most, and also we have demographics that is like this in a lot of parts in the world, right? This is old people, there's lots of old people, there's not much young people, and we are now in a very complex situation where people who are used to memorization are handling a world which is not based on memorization anymore, which we have tools that are way more better and demand different skills, different knowledge, different information processing capabilities, different habits, different routines, different attitudes toward life. But most of the people are super old, which are trained to be efficient and productive in the old world, but we are in the new world because of new technology, blah, blah, blah. And the education system is creating a new generation of people who are wasting their youth in education that is not really very fit for what we actually need right now. So we keep adapting and improving our society. So we are in a pretty dark era of useless people in power, or at least inefficient, very inefficient people in power compared to the tools. It's like imagine you have a tractor. You have a tractor, okay? You are a medieval peasant in the medieval age, and suddenly a tractor appears. You have your fucking land, but you have no idea how tractors work. So you cannot use the tractor properly to harvest the land. And even if you have the capability to harvest the land, because you have a tractor, let's say that there is gasoline in the tractor, okay? And even if you have the capability of harvesting lots of wheat, because you suddenly have a tractor, because you are very ignorant and you don't know how to properly manage a tractor, you will keep using the hoe to harvest the wheat. So that's kind of the metaphor. We have old leaders, old people with a young population that should be changing things, but they have been educated the old ways because the educational system is too much fixed on fixing and memorizing rather than the dynamic part of intelligence and rational thinking and all this stuff. And I will propose a better educational system, blah 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 blah. I'm very tired. I'm sorry for recording this. I'm so tired. And yeah, everything. If you are curious, more details, go to the book, blah blah blah. This is kind of the current context of the world. I think I will explain it better in another class with more chillness and other more concepts, more analogies and stuff like this. But for now, with everything I've presented, I think this is decent. So yeah, well, what do we do to solve all this mess? Well, first, change the educational system to something more cheerful and efficient, and second, teach the old people to change, because they still have like 10, 20, yeah, they still have like 20 more years of power and inefficient decisions. And old people, because they are old and they have been really, really trained to memorization and learning one thing and being in the same job position for 40 years, that's not useful anymore because we have way much better information processing capabilities. So that's not what society needs anymore. But you know, they are still going to be alive because we have very good technology and they're going to be living for longer years. So we also need them to change. But how do you make people who have been raised like this to adapt a different mindset. That's difficult. That's fucking difficult. That requires a lot of energy, consistent effort, things that humans don't really want to do. And these people are old, they have money, so why they would be putting consistent effort? Why? Because, I mean, for the betterment of their child, of their children, the future generations. So I hope all people watching this, you get motivated by the future, the improvement of the quality of life of your grandchildren. I hope, because I really don't see any other, for now, motivation to drive you from your comfortable positions. And yeah, I mean, we can always fight, right? We can always fight against each other, but what we saw, right, that just is very stupid, because our intelligence has a limit, and the chaos we will create can go very fast, and then we can just, I don't know, World War III, and we all die because we have nuclear weapons. I don't think it's smart to fight. I think it's better to just think about it, teach everyone all the basics, young, new generations, old people too. I think everyone should watch these videos and should think about it and approach and have a more cheerful approach to intelligence, to maximize their intelligence, to enjoy learning, to take learning as a habit, and prioritize useful learning for the context of today, and optimize their happiness. And because they're going to be more intelligent, and because they are a social animal, they're going to be sharing the knowledge, hopefully, and everyone, blah, 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 blah. And all this creates the emergent phenomena of solving all this. We are doomed feeling that nowadays people think, oh, the future is very uncertain, what's going to happen? Well, we can make this happen, right? And then we are not doomed anymore. That's kind of very quickly explained and very randomly explained. Yeah, I have to learn to explain this more in a more linear way, rather than this, and then this, and then this, and then this, and then joins with this, and then the conclusion is this. Yeah, I will learn, guys. Everyone is learning, me included. So that's the big challenge we have, right? Making old people learn, making young people feel hope for the future and keep learning. That's why, especially nowadays, being a selfless teacher, giving away knowledge is the best thing you can do for humanity. That's what I'm trying to do. For multiple reasons, but this is one of the reasons, because I really think this can save humanity, or at least improve. I don't think we're doomed, but if we want to get a better future faster and better for me, my generation, and the future ones, we should focus on this shit. And I'll keep putting effort to explain it better. I'm sorry, this is the best I can do right now. I'll try to do it better, slowly, as I grow, and I learn, and I connect ideas better, as I think like an engineer, and optimize my happiness. So yeah. I think that's all for power dynamics. I think that's all. Yeah, I threw the paper here. Let's see. I'm gonna put a mental note for myself. Don't record classes when you're tired, because then you try to rush things, and it's not as organic as nice. And it's nice, blah, 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 blah. This is the previous. Yeah. So okay. I mean, I can explain this, right? So that's why I'm gonna be talking about education, world peace, and more stuff in the next class, and economy in the next classes. So let's say that the biggest challenge we have as a society, as a race right now, it's not any ism that people will tell you, like, no, the problem is libertarianism, the problem is socialism, the problem is dictatorship, the problem is ism, is sexism, xenophobia, the problem is immigration, the problem. What all the problems have in common is that, I like this word, how is this? Is that we are not used to train our brain, and we still guide ourselves by let's say, by too much variables fixed at the same time, and we cannot handle faster information, more amounts of information faster in our brain. Man, my brain is not working. It's really not working today, yeah. It's really not working. I'm not gonna record this again, but yeah, it's just a prototype class, you know. So that's the biggest of the problems. And what do we do to solve that? We have to train. like physical training, but with mental training. We have to train our mind. So we are used to being exposed and thinking, being exposed to uncertainty and thinking critically and not taking any question as an assault. You know, like someone proposes something and you are like, yeah, but what if, right? And not perceiving this what if as an attack, but as a, oh yeah, let's start a discussion. And then you process information for your problem from your context, and then you eventually create an agreement. Hopefully, if no one has like a shotgun and he's like, I don't care about what you think, if you don't do this, I'm gonna shoot you. That's what I mean, like, this only works if survival is statistically granted, blah 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 blah. I hope these different ways of phrasing stuff is gonna make you click some things. I have to find more clear ways, man. I'm just too tired. I'm gonna stop this video right now. Yeah, I'm just too tired. Well, you see, guys, I'm not perfect. I'm just improvising, trying to improve, getting better, a little bit better every day at explaining things and understanding things, and at training my brain every day. Fortunately, my job is about training my brain, so I kind of have this advantage. I managed to find a job that makes me think about new stuff almost every day, so I'm pretty used to just be rational. That's the thing, guys. Good luck with everyone. Train your brain. And good luck also with everything. And am I missing anything else? No, that's it. Next classes. Yeah, let's talk about next classes. Gonna be about economy, personal finance, understanding all these financial products, understanding what money is, how money flows, what you can do with money, how it relates to human nature, what it actually represents, all this stuff. Then we're gonna be either talking about education or world peace, and then after these two, there's gonna be like a general chapter of explaining all the principles we can see in everything I've explained, and try to figure out a way to make humans better forever, and humans, at least human societies, better forever. And then what comes after that? Oh yeah, I also have a class about statistics, a class about other useful stuff. I still don't know much the order in which I'm gonna upload them, but I'm gonna upload them. Have a nice day, everyone. I'm gonna upload this video and sleep because I'm fucking tired. Ciao ciao.